Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. And tonight's show is, it's going to be a little bit odd because we have an awful lot of hockey talk, but we're not going to be talking about the game so much as we're going to be talking about the sport. A lot of news in the sports. Nice to be with you. I'm Fiore, and always my co-host, Bob Nelson. You know, I've been saying for a long time, we were some of the first people to report rather in depth on this whole situation that's going on with the 5 different NHL players and the ensuing lawsuit. Boy, that took a spin, a downward spiral spin, probably for all of these players and very possibly for the league. Bob has been following this thing very closely ever since it started, so I know you have some updates, and this thing is just getting ugly.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of updates, so I'm just going to kind of clip note it for everyone. If you go to the Canadian Press, they released yesterday not only a news report, but they kind of started from the start of the world to the end of the world on this U18 thing. And the first alleged date was when they won the gold medal against Sweden. That was January 5th of 18. Mm-hmm. Then they had this gala event for the Team Canada. It was supposed to be a fundraiser. All the U18 players that won the gold medal, showing off their medal, having a little cup of coffee with everyone, and golf outing next day, and that's when the allegations happened. June 18th was the first day of the gala. The 19th was reported that the sexual rape occurred after the party was over. And it goes from there until the woman stepdad went to the Canadian board and said, hey, this is what happened. Then you go a couple years back, or a couple years forward, to 2022. They settled with the civil, the Canadian hockey team, not the players. We haven't mentioned any of the players' names because I didn't think it was fair to mention them. But again, it's out there now. Right. Their one player is getting double charged. And not only are these players going to be charged whether they're innocent or guilty, it's not proven yet. The trial won't happen until 26. So these players basically are on a leave of absence from their hockey team. One team already took the player totally out of existence. The NHL announced yesterday after the press conference from the police chief of the London authorities, basically that they can get cap relief for these players that are no longer on their roster. I think it's going to be very difficult for these players, guilty or innocent, to have a decent career, besides the fact that coming up in 2026, the Olympics is hitting. And I also found out yesterday in the press conference from the Olympic Committee that no one on this roster will be permitted to be on the Team Canada Olympic. And that probably is pretty bad for one defenseman that plays for the Colorado Avalanche, who is a stud of a defenseman, Mr. Hardest shot in the NHL. Yeah. He probably won't be able to participate. And I also believe that because of the Canadian government, since the Team Canada is an entity of the Canadian government, I believe that there might be a hard time that you might not see Team Canada in the Olympics, because same thing happened to Russia on a situation where Russian was the athletes of Russia. It wasn't Team Canada.
Right.
So this could go very deep, and this will affect hockey more than what people think.
Well, for these 5 players that are involved, too, we were talking before the camera started rolling. I think for all intents and purposes, regardless of how the trial turns out, their careers are over. And with their careers being over, so would be their source of income, at least from hockey. So, this is kind of like a double-edged sword, because
but technically
even
they could go to another country to play if they can get their work visa.
Yeah, would the other countries want them?
I think the KHL would take them.
Seriously?
They have no conscience over there.
Wow, that's a blanket statement. I don't know about that. Okay, well, outside of the KHL, and I don't know how the rules would apply, the point I was trying to make was, even if this girl should be successful in her lawsuit and get money from these guys, for all intents and purposes, depending on how the jury goes, these guys could be bankrupt.
In a hurry.
Yeah, they may not be able to.
You figure, what are they going to do from now until 2026 when the trial starts?
Yeah.
They have no income coming in.
Yeah.
Plus, how much is attorney fees?
Yeah. And the key is, and Bob and I, again, were talking about this before the camera started rolling, There are video snippets, and the video snippets, I mean, this is just a brief thumbnail, so if you want to go into more detail, I know One America News is covering it. You had
Canadian Press covering
Canadian
it,
Press
TSN's
is covering
covering
it.
it.
There
I
you
mean,
go.
it's
out there.
It's a world
Yeah.
out there now with everything that's going on in the hockey industry. If
Yeah.
you just Google it, you're going to have
A lot of different sources
Yeah.
that you can check on. But these video snippets can be used for the defense of the players, because in those videos, the girl is pretty much saying that she's happy with everything and she's in for the sex party. And her side now is claiming that she was coerced into making those videos. So which is true, which is not true, I don't know. I mean, that's where the lawyers will fight it out in court. But
obviously the police thought something major happened in this case, or they wouldn't have reopened the
well,
case.
one of the things they reopened was apparently more of this girl's friends came forward and gave additional testimony. You know, that's always
plus the
suspect.
staff.
When it comes how many years later, that could be a somewhat sketch. But that's for the courts to decide and see how these things go. And like you say, either way, whether they're proven guilty or innocent, I think their careers are done.
Yeah,
I think that's all over and that's done with. And this is why, you know, you might be young, but you got to have a head on your shoulders. You got to think twice before you.
Plus, it did come out two other factors in this case. One factor is this wasn't the only incident that happened from 2018 till 2022 with some part of Team Canada's hockey program. Whether it was, again, allegation placed, Canada's hockey program covered it up. So
are you saying there's another scandal, or there's more to this scandal?
No, there's two other cases.
Two others
that came out of the woodwork since this is.
And do they involve NHL players as well?
That I'm not 100% sure of.
Okay.
I just know that the Canadian board of Team Canada's, you know, their officials that run the organization. They're being investigated right now for those other charges.
Yeah.
Plus all that money, like that you know, if you're in the United States, you pay for USA Hockey.
Yeah, yeah.
The money that the Canadian collects for their amateur programs
Yep.
was being used for other things than just the kids playing hockey and their insurance, like to cover all these lawsuits, to cover up that $3.55 million that was reported that this woman in this case got in a civil case. And the players, you know, and parents of Canada hockey programs are not real happy that their money's being used to cover up things instead of being used for what it's supposed to be used. Their kids playing hockey and ensure their kids' safety.
So do you think this thing could get big enough that it could put the Canadian junior program into jeopardy?
Oh, I absolutely think it could be big enough. Yeah, absolutely. And I also think that, you know, it's going to wake up other programs across North America.
Yeah.
You know, meaning, you know, if there's smoke, there's fire.
Yep.
What if it happened in USA's program? What if it happened in other programs like this?
Yeah, when this stuff comes out, I remember a good number of years ago, I did an exclusive interview with Theo Fleury, and this was right at the time that he was
devastating what happened to him.
Yeah, and he was very frank about it and talked up and down about it and steps
Wrote a
that
book
he was
about it.
Yeah, he was taking very positive steps to try to ensure this doesn't happen. So once the light is shined on this,
the Chicago Blackhawks incident.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it happens in hockey. It's a shame it happens in hockey.
Well, Chicago's had several incidents.
Yes, and that's why I feel, you know, we'll go back to the Bedard situation with the Corey Perry rumor and things of that nature. That's why I think Chicago just did whether it was true or not true. You know, I'm not the judge. I wasn't there. But I think that's why you saw Chicago just stiffly handle that situation. And whether Corey Perry did it or not, he was released, and it came out that he had a substantive problem. But my thought process was when an NHL player goes to the association and says, hey, I got a problem with substance abuse, they can't terminate your contract.
Right.
It's like they got to take care of you.
Right.
And then you got to go through the process of rehab and the programs
Right.
before they just outright release him, which sent a red flag to me saying that he wasn't in there for substance abuse. Because if he was, he still had his job until he got better.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly right. Well, this is all kind of interesting, and certainly, I guess, as the NHL attempts to really bolster itself and push its product, this is the type of thing that you don't want. We're going to talk a little bit later in the show about how the NHL is trying to bolster its image and whether or not that succeeds. But maybe now let's leave some of the scandals and let's talk about something that I know is near and dear to your heart. As we are recording this in the studio, the All-Star, I want to say fiasco, but let's call it the festival of the All-Stars.
I like the fiasco better.
Yeah, so, is over. Okay, this is just
Thank
a day or two after the All-Stars. So we had talked a little bit about how they could possibly change the All-Star. We did that on the last show. I know that the TV numbers that came in are in now after and it did not fare well as far as
well as the Winter
viewership.
Classic.
It did not fare well. So it's over. It's done with. I'm sure you watched some of it. What were your opinions of the?
So let's go because I'm a Jersey snob. Okay.
No, wait. You don't mean New Jersey. You mean jerseys.
Jerseys.
Yes. Okay. We should clarify that.
So let's just talk about the jerseys for a minute.
Sure.
Justin Bieber, is that how you pronounce his name?
Yes.
What in God's creation are you gonna let that dork do the jerseys? They look like practice jerseys with logo splashed wherever you wanted. They were hideous, horrible, terrible. Like, who lets a guy? And then they let him behind the bench with this red and polka dotted white jacket. Jacket looked like he was a goalie. That's how puffed up it was. Okay, sorry. The skills competition. Okay, that's the only reason people watch is for the skills.
Yeah.
There was one NHL player, I'm not going to name his name, that is probably going to get suspended for playing by the rules because the fans in Toronto don't like him to begin with, and they thought he, kind of went through the motions and did it pretty poorly to the worst of his ability, but he played by the rules. The player union is going to go to Bettman and tell Bettman to go pound salt because he did what was in the contract. If you're healthy, you have to show up. Did he not show up?
Showed up.
Okay. Number two, let's get off of Sid's back, okay? And I'm not a big Penguin fan.
You are not.
I think there's better players than Sid out there, and I get ridiculed for it.
I understand.
I'm going to say Orr, I'm going to say Gretzky, I'm going to say Howe, I'm going to say Lemieux.
I'm going to say Ovechkin.
Okay. So the poor guy needs a break. He's in his late 30s. He's still playing at the top of his game. Okay? He decides to go to Montana. He has a little place in Montana, and I can't remember. There's a rink, and there's video of him skating by himself during the All-Star break. And the guy missed the draft. Whoop-de-doo. The guy is honing his craft. He is trying to be the best he can be, and you're riding his backside, and he didn't even participate in the skills competition. Right. Who cares the draft? Put a picture up on the camera. Have his lookalike come and put his jersey on if you're that concerned that Sid was there. He was there for the skills.
Yeah.
He was there for the game.
What else do you want?
Yeah, what else do you want the guy to do? He needs a vacation. He's old. He needs to relax a little bit, And then let's go to the game. Is hockey 3-on-3?
Never was.
Okay.
Summer league.
Yeah. Okay.
That's all.
Summer league.
Yeah,
when
summer
you want to
league.
work on your skills.
For the kids, yeah.
The goalies don't like it.
No.
We hate it. Oh, you might as well just put a shooter-tooter in that.
Right.
And let us sit on the bench and drink a little Gatorade, have a little popcorn, watch the show. The hockey game is not what it used to be.
Yeah.
The All-Star games used to be fierce and physical.
Yeah.
When the USA or the team Russia would play the North American All-Star team. Yeah. That was hockey. Or the team that won the Stanley Cup, they would play the Russian team. You know, it's so bad.
Yeah.
I mean, like, no, everyone's handing each other jerseys, everyone's signing, everyone's your best friend. I remembered if I was on the Kraken and he was on the Atlanta team, after the game, even if it was playoffs, they would make us shake hands. Billy Smith would say, I
Yeah,
ain't
he
shaking your hand.
skated right off.
What are we doing? What are we doing, Fior?
I always liked Billy Smith's reasoning, though. He said, look, he said, for a 7-game series, 60-minute game, these guys have been trying to take my head off, and now you want me to shake their hand. He said, forget it, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I always
can't
liked
blame
that.
him.
No, I don't blame him either.
So my suggestion, and we've talked about it a few times, if you want to combine the best of both worlds, I say skip the Winter Classic. Have the All-Star game be your outdoor game. And bring in the East Coast affiliates to have their game. Bring in the Women Professional League to have their game. Bring in the 2 best college teams to have their game outdoors, NHL, AHL. And make it a 5-day event. And make it so it doesn't count against anything.
Yeah.
And make such a good event of it that you're going to get the players and their families that want to go there. And make it a hockey festival for a week, and make it the All-Star game.
You know, we mentioned this on the last show, too, and I just want to say right now that a lot of people watch this show globally when we go online. So that idea is now copyrighted, okay? It was a good idea on the last show. We've reiterated it on this show. So if the bald-headed gnome decides that he wants to go ahead and try something like this, we want our stipend. We want our kickback for the idea.
But don't you agree that would be a good suggestion?
I agreed with you last show, and I haven't changed my opinion. We had said that the NHL was trying desperately to bolster its image, and it wants to do that in 2 different ways. Actually, 3 different ways. And Bob, we need to get your opinion on all of this. First, let's talk a little bit about Ryan Smith. Ryan Smith is one of these guys that, the guy's a billionaire. He's got, more money than God, and he swooped in a while ago and bought up the Utah Jazz. And
I heard there was a rumor he was going to sponsor our show, too.
Oh, that would be fine. We won't say anything bad about it.
We're just throwing it out there, Ryan.
He now wants an NHL team, and apparently he's been cozying up to Bettman and the NHL board for quite some time now, and he wants an expansion team in Utah. Now, before we get to comments on that, let's cut now. We have a video of Ryan Smith talking about his expansion for the NHL.
On our side, we're all in. I think that's the most important thing is that we get lined up. I think we've gotten and established a pretty good relationship with Gary Bettman and Bill and the crew over there for a couple of years now. If you look at the momentum of Utah, we've got to put something in front of them that's pretty tough for them to turn down, and I think we've done that. Our goal as our organization is we want to be ready to go. We know it's going to be successful. Utah is excited about it, as you've seen the reaction, and so we're leaning all the way in.
Okay, so that's the story. Ryan Smith wants a team. Now, the NHL already has 32 teams. I think, and I've always said, there's too many teams. The talent level has been watered down tremendously. And I think they made expansion too much and too fast. But we're going again, and it looks like this Utah thing. There are other cities that are being considered, one of which, the strong one, is Cincinnati, believe it or not.
Yeah, why?
But I don't know. But this Utah thing is getting a real big push. Bob, are we ready for expansion? Do we go into Utah? What's going on?
Well, here's the biggest problem. You have 32 teams. That's why I have the 32nd team jersey on right now.
Yeah.
In the Kraken. If you go 32, you got to go 34.
One would think.
And I think the perfect number, if you had the talent, but you don't have the talent, because you have too many good hockey players still playing in the KHL that don't come over here from Russia, for example. There's a lot of great talented hockey players still stuck in Russia because of their 2-year military thing. So if that's the case, the location that I heard would have been Kansas City, still wants a team because they're a great arena they have. Utah now.
Yeah.
I still don't know why Quebec don't have a team. If you're going Cincinnati, I think that would be the same thing as going Atlanta. And I heard Atlanta has more money that they want a team now,
And they couldn't hold on to the Thrashers.
or the Atlanta Flames.
Yeah, well, the Thrashers had better uniforms. I think.
Yeah, but I'm just saying the Flames. So, and therefore, it sounds like Gary Bettman and the ownership don't want to move teams, because that ship sailed when you had 2 teams in Florida and they weren't so great. But now Florida Panthers are up and coming. They're making long runs in the playoffs. And Tampa, how many cups do they have now?
Yep.
And Carolina's another team that Bettman won't let leave Carolina, because that's his South baby that he's always wanted.
Yep.
So really, what could you move? You're not gonna move another Canadian team and have the uproar of that. I mean, they're already pissed they don't have a team in Quebec,
Right.
which they should.
Yeah.
So to me, the only thing you can justify is if you're gonna put one team in, you got to put 2 teams in, and the owners would love that, and they don't care about how watered down the product. Because they get a good chunk of change of money every time an expansion team has to pay that expansion fee.
Yeah.
And that's why they don't want to move a team, because they don't get as much money. The owners don't get as much money when you're moving a team, but you get a lot of money when you're and with the salary cap being the way it is and coming out of COVID, and it was struggling, and they're still their bad TV contract. That's a good way to make extra money and not have to put it into your salary cap or put it in your team. You just put it right in your pocket.
Yeah, but we were talking about, we've been talking about especially goalies and how the whole position has deteriorated so much, and the style, and then you expand more, and it can't be good for the skill of the game. I mean, you water down the product.
But what does these owners and Bettman want? They don't care about the product.
They want the money.
Because if they cared about the product, they'd be doing their homework to make the game better, not worse.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. All right, let's move on to something else. Bob had mentioned this a little earlier in the show. Let's go back to it now, and that is that Gary Bettman has done a 180-degree turn. Originally, he pulled the team, the NHL players, out of the Olympics, said he didn't want to be bothered with them, and now he has come out with a statement claiming that the NHL players will be allowed back in. This will happen in 2026 and 2030. Here is Bettman's statement.
We have an agreement among us and with the International Olympic Committee for NHL players to participate in the 2026 and 2030 Olympics. We know how important international competition is to our players. We know how much they love and want to represent the countries from which they're from. And we think this is a great stage for best on best, the best on best, in what obviously we all believe is the best sport.
All right, so that was Bettman's statement. And as I said, it's a 180-degree turn.
Was I allowed to boo him during that statement? Like he gets booed every time else?
Well, that was just in front of the board. So, I never liked when they took the Olympic break. I never appreciated that. I thought it was stupid. It was bad for the game. It was bad for the season. But it's coming back. What do you say?
Well, I would agree. The only thing that I would honestly say, I think the people in Pittsburgh are going to be pretty happy about the situation, because that might be the last time you see Sid Crosby playing the Olympics. Because, after 26, I don't know if he's going to make the 30 Olympics, because I'm sure if he retires between 26 and 30, I don't think he's going to want to come out of retirement, and because he seems like a type of person, if he can't be the best of the best at that stage, I don't know if he'd want to play. That's first and foremost. I think it benefits the NHL, because I heard there was some swapping going around between the NHL money and the Olympic board. The little bird told me, little Puck, that they might be able to promote their sport inside the Olympic realm with maybe some free commercials, free ads, maybe some free board advertisement, things of that nature that might make it very lucrative for the NHL players that want to come and play. And like we talk off the air all the time, the only really country that really cares about the Olympic is the Russians. And the last time they played the Olympics, they were not called the Russian team because of the war factor. And who knows? You might not have Team Canada at the Olympics in 26 if this whole thing comes out. I know, like we talked about earlier in the show, that the U18 players will not be permitted to play on this roster.
Yeah. Well, another way that Bettman wants to pump up the league is he wants to go to a 4-nation international tournament. And he's going to set this up for next year, next season, 2025. Here is what the bald-headed gnome had to say.
And we'll get to announcing something relatively soon, is going to be about Best on Best International, which accentuates one of the great strengths of our game.
Now, Bettman is trying to do this international thing with 4 teams starting off. I don't think it should be something, again, that's in the middle of a season, but it looks like it's doing it. Is this a good idea? Is this a bad idea?
It's a bad idea.
Okay, why?
A lot of reasons.
Go ahead.
What if one of your superstars gets hurt?
Yeah.
Okay, first and foremost. Number 2, what if the teams that you're bringing in, they're not prepared, because it's going to be, again, a watered down substance, because if me and you haven't played together for a while, how good's the product going to be on the ice? It's going to be pretty bad. Because if we're defense partners, I don't know how you play. I play in Philadelphia, you play in Boston.
Yeah.
I've never played with you. Maybe Olympics, maybe an All-Star game here and there. But, to make this great, that's why, like these Olympic teams, they play months together.
Yeah, they do.
To build a rapport, to build that locker room.
Yeah.
You're asking these athletes to come out of their team within a week, get ready for this event.
Well, why couldn't they do something, which I was thinking, is you have this tournament and you have it after the season, or you have it before the season even starts.
But they do.
And
they're trying to be, the NHL is trying to be the NFL.
But you don't use all-stars. You use the cup winners. So let the Tampa Bay Lightning win the cup. Then that's the team that represents the NHL.
Okay, so
they go against Sweden and Finland.
If I'm the owner of the Tampa Bay Lightning,
yeah,
okay, and everyone realizes every year you play hockey, you get older.
Yeah.
Okay, you win the Stanley Cup playoff.
Yep.
That's 81 games plus how many?
To get to the 16 to get to the cup.
It's a lot of games.
It is.
And then you're asking a team to play even more games.
Yeah.
Then you're asking a team to come back for training camp. Then you're asking a team to start the season. If I won a Stanley Cup and I played my almost 100 games, I don't want to go and play another 10 games, meaningless 10 games.
Yeah.
Plus, you count the All-Star game, you count other factors in this situation. You got a guy like Steven Stamkos, who's up there in age, been injured the last couple Stanley Cup runs.
Yeah.
It takes its toll. Look at how Victor Hedman started to decline as a defense. He was the stud defenseman before the Avalanche McCarr came into the league.
Yeah.
Now, he because those games catch up on you. When you're playing an extra 20 to 30 games a year, that catches up on your body. Yeah. At the end of the season, those players just want to go home and rest and recoup and get their body ready for the next season. They don't want to go play a meaningless tournament.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, both of these things, the Olympics and the international tournament, and even expansion, are topics that we will cover on future shows. As much as I'd like to continue the talk, we're fresh out of time for this episode, so Bob and I will have to reorganize our notes, get some more info, and we'll see you the next time. Remember, when it comes to hockey, if you're in the game, you're in the crease.
Keeling goes into the corner, loses it. Puck is back of the Toronto Nets, and they're having a hard time now keeping it away. Andy Blair rushes up with Gracie, is outskated at center, and the regulation time is nearly up. They've come to the end of the 60 minutes of regulation play, and the score is still tied, 0-0. That means overtime, and the first goal will win the game.